Hi, everybody. So, as I spoke to you on my Scrum Sister Studio page, I said that I was going to maybe do some videos on daffodil, watercolor daffodil, and watercolor lilies. I haven't painted the lilies just yet. I've just sketched them out, but I did want to play with some daffodils. And I did a few earlier down at the studio, and I was just not having any luck with my camera down there. I ended up using the phone, and then that just ran out of power. I forgot my power cord, so it wasn't working for me, so I decided to bring everything home. I did use the webcam down there, but my software is outdated on the computer there. Here I'm at home. I've got the Windows 10, blah, blah, you know. So here I am. I'm very limited in my space here, so hopefully you'll be able to see as much. So what I did is to begin with, I found this photograph online, right? And it's a single daffodil in a vase. And I just wanted to, I really liked it. It was very simple, very, standalone. And I thought, well, it couldn't be that hard. But I found that I was really getting detaily, and I wasn't really liking what I was doing with colors because I was a bit too detail and I was overworking and I just didn't like it. So I thought that maybe what I do is just show you what I did, and then we can go into a new one using just basic minimal colors and make it a lot quicker than I did. So what I did was is I sketched it, and what I did actually was I put it on tracing paper. So there's a number of things that you can do. I'll send you this picture. I don't have a whole lot of room, so I'll send you this picture. So what I did is I actually sketched it onto tracing paper. As you can see, it's got really dark now because I've transferred it so many times. But then you can also flip it over, which is what I did for this one here. And then I didn't have to use the graphite paper again because sometimes the graphite itself can be very dark. The graphite sheet, you can buy them and I would recommend that you get the 1824. You get two in a package, far better, cost effective. It goes for a long ways. Anyway, that's how I like to transfer. Some people will use a light box, print out the photo and then use a light box. A lot of times, though, I'll manage to do like a quick freehand or whatever, and on a tracing paper, and then I'll transfer that onto my watercolor paper because I like doing it this way because then I've always got this. If I ever want to go back and do it again, I don't have to go through all the trouble. So if you don't have graphite paper, the good old way to do it is to, once you've drawn it out on there, either go to the back side and draw it out with a nice soft pencil following that, and then bring it back over again and follow the lines again on that side, and that graphite that's on the back, right, which is what I did here, and only I went over it with a pen because the pen was harder and it would made that more successful to transfer over. Okay, so, and not only that, it wasn't very dark, which I don't like to see a lot of pencil in my work, but it's okay if it is. So these ones here I wasn't all that pleased with, but so, and I thought, well, we're making them into cards, so we should probably maybe make them look a little bit more like an illustration. This is the first one I did with a dark background. And then this one here, so this one here, I just kept working in layers. I like to do a lot of glazing and build up, but I thought, no, this isn't a make work. We don't want to spend all kinds of time just working on a small piece, especially if it's for a card. So let's try and make it very loose. I had done the same thing here. I didn't like what I did. Well, it's not that I didn't like it. I just thought I'd try a little bit more of a warmer brown. Your RGB values are going to probably change or be different than mine on my computer screen. I can actually see on the screen here that it looks different than what it looks more gray on the screen, but here it's actually more of a browny gray color. And of course, and then what I did is I used a complement background to the yellow, which actually punches that yellow out a bit more. The dark here looks really good too because it gives it a little bit of contrast. So I started another one up here too. just kind of making it more of an illustration. But then I also decided, well, you know what I'm going to do too is I'll do one on the horizontal, just freehand sketch out a daffodil, and then just, we'll do it very wet, very free, and see how that works out. So I'm just going to use a very minimal palette. I don't want you to have to get all fussed about having the right colors to use. I mean, I've got quite a few of my own watercolors here at home, and plus what I've got. So this is my travel one. I've already, as you can see, I've already started to mix colors and get colors here. But and also you want two things of water. I use one for dirty, one for clean. And this, this is actually a pretty good little tip here too. This is what I do with my I got a little piece of chicken wire, and I always put it in the bottom. And that way when you're cleaning your brush, you scrape it against that chicken wire, and it takes all that excess pigment out. And then also another really cool thing is if you can ever get a hold of a pipette, I use the pipette to actually create my puddles of wash, and then I'll add the color to it. So I'll come out, and then I'll come out here, and then I'll put a puddle of water on there, and then I'll add my pigment, and then that way I make a wash. I also use Coroplast. You can get these at Michael's. It's double the size of this, and then just get it cut in half. Works really well. You can do wet on wet with this, with no taping at all. You just wet the whole back side of the watercolor paper, and then you wet the front, and it's like a suction cup sticks to the page. Just when you want to work wet on wet. I did have this taped down, but it restricted me, and I thought, you know what, we're working so small anyway, and this way I can hold up and show you. Okay, so like I said, you don't need to get all fussed about colors. I even have, like, if you even have like a little kit here, this is a cute little pen kit. These are all pastel spring colors. There's a nice light yellow there. There's an orangey yellow right there. And there's actually like a burnt umber. This one's called chocolate. So this actually would be, you can see they're all not in the right places. But matters not. This here, this here, this here would be great colors to use. I'm going to use a, you can use a Winsor yellow. You can use, I'm using Hansa yellow light because it's what's in my palette right here. The lightest yellow that you have, and then a mid yellow. This is cadmium yellow deep, but you can also use a new gamboge, a medium yellow, with just a tiny touch of a warm red, and that will make it a, see, and you can't even see the nice orangey looks on here on my screen. They look very they don't, you can't see the significance between them, but actually there really isn't a whole lot of, this is an Indian yellow, that's new gamboge, and that's a medium yellow. I think it's a whole bean, and whole bean tends to be more opaque than the other manufacturers. But I just added a tiny touch of Pyrrole Scarlet to it, just a touch, and that really warmed it up into a nice yellowy, an orangey yellow. So we don't want to go orange, but I chose the daffodil that's the yellow on the outside with the orange, like a darker color in the center, because I just felt that it's nice to have that contrast rather than just do something that's all yellow. Okay, so to start with then, what we're going to use, I kind of wrote down on a paper here somewhere the colors that I thought that we could use. So basically what I'm using is the Hansa Yellow Light. If you've got bismuth, that's really nice. If you've got Winsor Yellow, that's a really nice light yellow. But I'm going to use a Cad Yellow Deep, which is what I've got on my palette here. Like I said, if you've got new gamboge or something, or even if you've got just a student grade palette. I mean, I even have, I've got my at-home watercolor pencils too. I've got the big one at the studio, and I just keep this one at home. But see, you can actually see we even got a reddy orange and a deep yellow here. Just use these. See, there's this here's a sepia. We can use that in place of the burnt umber. So the colors I'm using for this are Hansa Yellow Light or a light yellow, and a medium yellow, and a French ultramarine blue, because it's a really nice dark blue. It's actually a warm blue. And so for the center of this, it's going to be a cool yellowy on the outside, but the inner color really is a warm yellow. And then burnt umber we're going to use in place, like get a nice brown for the shadows, okay? So that particular picture's got a lot of highlights to it too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my paints, which I already have ready. So if you want to put this on pause, and then that way you can go get your paints ready. Get little puddles of yellow. So the bright yellow is we're gonna have a nice, brushes. I've got a number 8 Princeton. I like the Princetons. This one here is the fine point at the top, but the Princeton number 8 regular, or if you've got a nice 8 round, that would be a good one to use. And then a number 4. This one actually is a Kolinsky Sable. So this holds a lot more water than this one does. But I really like this here. I'll get a lot of mileage out of the number 4, especially when you're working with the small. So you don't have to get all fussed up about what size brushes to use. Just keep it at a number 8 and a number 4. And even if you have to go smaller, you can even go to a number 2 to get the smalls, or 3, whatever you got. I mean, I've got so many brushes, it's crazy. But I do like the number 4s, and I like the number 8 is one of my favorite sizes. And then number 10 and 12, Anyway, and there's also the mops and all that other good stuff. But that's another day, another one. So I also have this here too. You see I've got it taped off. I'm going to paint these again, and what I did here, what happened here is the graphite transfer was so dark, so I'm going over these with the eraser just to lift some of the graphite off. I really don't want that much, but anyway, I put the tapes on here so that when you're all done, you take the tape off, you got these really nice clean edges on there. Okay, and that looks nice, especially if you're going to trim it and put it on a card. Now, I'm using a 140-pound Strathmore 400 series. I wouldn't probably use a 90-pound because just going in with the wet paint, we're going wet on dry, it would tend to buckle a lot easier and a lot quicker. Now, if you're if you're used to that, by all means use it, but just be very careful. You really don't want to go in for too wet then, because then it's just going to get all buckly. So the reason why I did it this way too is because it's easier to bring this up to the camera as well. So what I did on this one here, though, the first one that I showed you, that's actually a 9 by 12, which, is that 9 by 12? Yeah, so I think that's the 12 inches there. 18, 24. So it was an 18 by 24, which got me 4 9 by 12s out of that sheet. So, which is excellent. And then 4 9 by 12. So then you've got 4 of these, but then you can actually break this down into 4 again, and that'll get you 4 cards at 6 by 4.5. And then you could actually just, well, by the time you put the tape and everything around the edges, and then you can trim it, it'll fit a 4 by 6, or you could even go with a 5 by 7 card, and then that way you've got room around the card. All right, so let's, I've got my little puddles here ready for my little washes, right? So I'm going to make my yellow. I've already got one kind of going there. I have 2 things of water, one for dirty and the one for clean. Now, I'm a real stickler about keeping your pigments clean and bright. Discharge all the color of the pigment into your dirty water. Then once you've done that, then bring it into the clean water to get all the pigment out. So what I'm going to suggest here right now is we come in with a really nice just a really nice loose wash. Now, watercolor, of course, does dry lighter. So let's just kind of go over this really, really quick. We'll just kind of go over this whole daffodil. And it was funny because when I was doing it today, I kept calling it a dandelion. Don't know why. Anyway, so we're going to come in with a nice loose wash. Okay, cover all of that. Now I'm lifting some of it too, and I've also got a rag here which takes up that excess water for me. I like to sometimes pick up and make what we call a thirsty brush. If I'm seeing that I've got puddles there, see that? I'm going to come in and I can lift up some of those edges. So what I'm going to do here too is you can see that it's not like a nice flat wash at all. I've got some white gaps here too. I want to kind of leave that so that it gives us a sense of the sunlight coming through or a source of light. And the other thing too is, so see where I'm kind of just picking up some of that color in here. Now this one here is that Princeton extra point. So I'm just going to go right to my number 4. My nice number 4, and that's really going to pick up that color. See that? How that's picked that up? So I'm going to just do some lifting here. Now this is opposite of what's on the my photograph because I reversed it when I was, but that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. So here we go. So I'm just kind of picking out some of those highlighted areas, the edges. Now, I'm not even really going to worry about that too much either. If I really want to do this real light, I'm totally okay now with using gouache. I used to be such a purist. Oh no, you can't use anything but just watercolor and leave the white of the paper. And I mean that's a lot of fun, and that's actually an exercise of restraint in itself. See how I'm kind of going over here and I'm discharging any of that water? So this is what I'm doing. I'm lifting right now. So now as this is kind of like, it's still wet, but it's not quite as wet as it was. It's a little bit semi like a satin. Well, that's good. So then we can come in now, and I'm going to make just a really light green with a little bit of the French ultramarine, just a tad. And I'm going to mix that to make my shadows, as opposed to whereas in the photo, of course, it looks much darker. But I'm going to actually come in and make a green, a blue green, or I'm going to make a green with my French ultramarine and my Hansa yellow light. Okay, so I'm going to come in with that. I'm going to make this little puddle. Now, as I said, watercolor does dry lighter. So because this is reverse of what I had it on here, and if you go with your picture, you'll see that the shadows, I'm going to follow that in reverse. Matters not if you do it the same as me. So we're going to come in and just kind of, this is going to be my shadow side, that's going to be my light side. But so this is actually a photograph, so the photographers will tend to add their own light source. So see how I'm just kind of dropping it in and just letting it mix with the yellow. It's just kind of mingling with it. And here we got some folds. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to make this identical to the photo because that's just crazy. I spend a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety over the years trying to get everything absolutely picture perfect. And I thought, wow, I should just become a photographer. If I want it photorealistic, just take a photo. Besides, this is much more fun. It's a little bit more interpretive, as you can see, right? I'm coming along with just some of that. Now, I see that, this is going to dry with a little bit of hard edge, and I really don't like that. So I'm just going to kind of come in on the edges and feather them out a little. See how I got that just feathered out, right? And just so that they're not going to be so hard. Lift up some of these puddles here. And we can always come back and play with this. So I'm a real fan of glazing. I love to put layering down and build up, the values. So I probably might even come back in here after with a little bit darker, a little bit of a darker shadow work in here just to really make that pop, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a nice little wash with that Cad Yellow Deep. Right, I'm going to come in and I'm going to go right over top of that yellow. Right in here. And I'm going to stay away from the edges a little bit because I really don't want it to bleed into the petals on the outside. So just keeping that on the inside. I'm going to lift here, right, because that's a lighter, right, that part in here. So you have to lift that. So that's where the light is kind of shining through. I'll lift that out. Now you can see it kind of bled a little bit. That's okay. Now, Cad medium, Cad itself is an opaque color. That means it's not transparent. So you notice I went back over that again. Now I'm going to clean that out, and then I'm going to take all that water out, okay, as much as I can, because I don't want to introduce any more water. You see where it's kind of running? I'm going to try and keep that. Now, because you have the benefit of the video, what you could also do is stop the video and dry all that if that really bothers you. But because it's all, you know, like see where it just kind of bled out a bit? Well, I'm not worried about that because I'll just lift that up. Right. Okay. So while that's drying, or while we're getting there, let's take just a little bit of this burnt umber. If you don't have burnt umber, try and make a brown, or any brown that you do have. Of course, to make brown, it's red and green. And so I would also make that a warm. So use a warm red. You know, we got a Cad red is very nice. It's a very warm color, but you don't need much. Okay, so you'll just put it in with your green mixture. And you know, make your green out of your light yellow, of course, not your medium. Or you could use your medium and then make a darker green color too. So it just makes a darker brown. So burnt umber is a really nice dark color. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in and just make some drops here. Right? And this is kind of like that inner. So we got some shadow work going around up here. It's weird doing this in reverse. So you can see it's kind of spreading out a little. All right. So we probably want to let that dry a little bit. So while we're letting it do that, let's make another green, but we'll make a deeper, richer green, okay? So what I want to do with that is we're going to take that French ultramarine again, take a nice little dollop of that, and bring that in. We don't want a whole lot of water, okay, with this one. We want this fairly to come in with a clean brush. And I'm going to come in with the Cad medium. And then I'm going to come in and make my green. And that should turn out to be somewhat of a dark, almost like a sap green, right? It's a little too watery still, but that's okay. I'll just keep at it. Yeah, that's a great green. French ultramarine is such a great color. Okay, so I'm going to take that a little bit of that off, and now we're going to, because that's going to be our dark side is over here. If you're doing it the other way, the dark side will obviously be on that. You always have to check for your light source, right? That's very, very important. You know what? This will be good too to kind of come in and reinforce some of these shadows around here while we're at it, right? Let's pick that up. Keep it on this side here. And that actually will separate this. we want to keep it a little bit loose and almost impressionist. So see how I'm just lifting a clean brush, right, back into the wet, take that excess off, and then we'll just kind of feather this, lift, dry it off, right, just kind of. So I like how this went here. That, if that could all blend like that, I'd be happy. So that's the thing that keeps me so in love with watercolor. I mean, I've been painting with watercolor like a very long time. I'll say it. 40 years ago, I picked up watercolors, and it has still proven to be challenging. I can have great days with it, and then other days I just can't seem to get it, no matter what. And I'm not sure why. Probably because I end up, see, coming back in here now, in that center, because I really want that to stand out, okay? So see how nice that's all kind of blended now? We'll clean up this edge here. But this in here, I want this to be really dark, because that's where the stamen grows out of, right? And then we can actually even bring that just slightly. We could water that down just a little bit, right? And then just bring that out. See that? So we'll just bring that out. And then that kind of accentuates the depth. I'm just gonna kind of drop that burnt umber in there. Okay? And then that's going to give me a little bit of, see, it's just about, because it's so small, the painting itself is going to be so small that you really don't, this sort of thing is really not applicable here. And so it's just going to be a matter of just continuous feathering, right, with some of the colors, just dropping it in, because it's still wet. So we are going to get some nice effects. Okay, so I don't want to overwork that, and then I see that maybe I sort of did here. So this is the thing about live too. You're seeing me make the goof ups as I go as well. That's a beauty. Watercolor. Everybody's at the mercy of watercolor. So anyway, this here, we can clean that up as we go, but you can see because we chose to do the greeny yellow, that it actually is giving it a little bit of a separation. Now this here, we can bring, I'm not going to show, like daffodils always have this little husk at the top of where the flower and the stem meet. So I just came in with the lighter green again, just for that stem. So for the base, let's give it something contrasting. Let's do some, like we'll go a nice dark, like a deep blue, but I want to add just a little bit of red. So I've got a magenta here. If you've got a magenta, or if you've got a permanent alizarin, it has to be permanent alizarin, not just straight up alizarin. Straight up alizarin crimson now has been deemed to be a fugitive color, so you don't want to be using a fugitive. What does fugitive mean? It means it will fade away, run away. Like that's what a fugitive is, right? So what I'm going to do is, because it's kind of a complement, I'm going to actually do this in a purpley tone. So I forgot that this was so used to doing the other one. So this is the dark side. Ooh, I don't like the way that came out. The dark side. So much of that anymore. So just leaving some white space gives you the illusion of light and reflection, right? So I'm going to make this one actually a little bit deeper on the inside by dropping a little bit more blue to show that that's the inside of the rim. right? So just keeping it simple. We don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that. So that is, if you got any questions, by all means, I'd love to do this live, but I don't know if I could do a live 30 minutes on Facebook. We should, I should check that out. So I'm going to come in now and I'm just going to lighten up some of the areas. Now where this here is, just keep that light. And if it's not light enough for you, like I said, just come in with a little bit of gouache. So I'm just wanting to lighten this up a bit. Now I'm actually going to come in. This one here is below anyway, but I am going to lift because I want to differentiate between, right, between this and this. It's very wet. So what I think I might do, so for background on this one, I'm not going to really worry too much about that because I really wanted to go over to the other one. But you could mix up a puddle of either the dark green or you could do a nice blend of the purple. So that would be the French ultramarine blue with a nice alizarin, permanent alizarin, or a rose, or a magenta, and that'll make a really nice purple. And that's actually the complement of yellow, so that should pop that right out. If you want to keep it, so you notice what I did too, because I didn't like these too much, I actually went over them with pen. See that? This one here, not, and I did a little cross hatching and all that for shadow work there. Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to do here. So, and that makes it look more illustrative for a card. This here's more painterly. So you have a choice of what you want to do. I think maybe I might even just dry brush this background. Who knows? But I am going to come in and I'm going to clean this up. But right here is what I wanted to change. I'm going to take a little bit of that burnt umber and I'm actually going to add a little, just a touch of, add some burnt umber to the yellow. And then I'm going to add just a touch of the red for this, the stamen part, right? And I'm just going to put a blob there, right? Just to kind of differentiate that. And what I'm going to also do again, now that this is drying out, is I'm going to come in here. I want to make that a little bit browner. I might have done that a little bit too dark. Well, that's not the one I'm working on. This is the one. So this one here is much looser. I like it. I like it looser. So this is where, now this is a little bit more dry now. We can kind of come in and kind of come around. And I'm going to just play at the curls, right? Just bring that. There we go again, right? So we're just, I'm just dropping it. So you can see my my brush holds a lot, right? I'm still not run out. Well, I just loaded it again though, just now, because it was starting to get a little thin in the color. So now what I want to do though is I just want to bring this out and tie all that together, right? I don't want it that dark though. So I really wish though that you could see, it doesn't look as nice on this screen as it does here. The colors here are nice, they're rich. Now I'm going to just come in, blend that. So it's still wet on that side. It's bleeding, but I can change that myself later. But even looking at this and seeing how I left that white space there, that's already dry. So we can actually come in here again. And I'm actually going to add just a little burnt umber to that, so make it even darker. And then we can come in, right? See that? Come in and really make that nice and dark. All right. Does that work for you? I mean, we could fiddle and fiddle and fiddle and fiddle, and then you get caught up in the detail of it. Oh, the other thing we didn't do is I made that nice little stamen color. But wait till that's dry. So I usually always keep a hairdryer beside me to do quick dries if I find that, you know, like especially for that edge, right? That edge right there. I would have dried that because it's just bleeding through, and I haven't been able to get in and fix that up. But I think you kind of got the idea. But I will wait, and I will come over that, and then I'll post and I'll show you what the difference is once I've allowed that to dry. Okay, so there's the daffodil. The next one we're going to do is going to be the Easter lily. And I found a photo for that too, and I transposed it. So it's going to be one right here, and then these ones that are still closed. Really nice tight picture. So I'm going to paint this one again. I'm going to do it pretty much what I showed you here. And yeah, I'm going to do that, and then I'll show. But this one here, I'm going to do this a couple of times just to get a feel for my brush. I usually do a couple just to kind of get a feel for how I want to paint it. Because there's some days I work very loose, and there's other days I work very tight. So I'm going to try and keep it loose, and so that we can make this a nice quick lesson for you. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions at all, please post them.